At first, it didn't look like a crisis. Just a few broken fences, some flattened corn rows, fresh mud near the irrigation lines. Farmers blamed weather, then wildlife, then bad luck. But within weeks, the signs became impossible to ignore. Across rural landscapes, from open farmlands to dense forest edges, wild boars began appearing in numbers never seen before. Not tens, not hundreds, thousands. Entire herds moving like a living storm, tearing through crops in a single night and vanishing before sunrise. Wild boars are not ordinary animals. They are fast, they are intelligent, and most dangerously, they adapt quickly. With powerful shoulders, razor-sharp tusks, and thick hide layered with muscle and fat, a fully grown wild boar can weigh over 200 kilograms. Fences mean nothing. Scare tactics fail. Even natural predators avoid full-grown males. Once these animals claim territory, they defend it relentlessly. Farmers woke up to ruin harvests. Cornfields shredded like paper, wheat trampled into mud, fruit trees uprooted, livestock attacked, entire seasons of income destroyed overnight. And it wasn't isolated. Reports started flooding in from multiple regions. Insurance claims skyrocketed. Local authorities confirmed what many feared. Wild boar populations had exploded beyond control, fueled by mild winters, lack of predators, and vast food availability near human settlements. But the real danger wasn't just economic. Wild boars carry diseases capable of wiping out livestock populations. They damage irrigation systems, destabilize soil, and even threaten human safety. There were increasing cases of boars charging tractors, vehicles, and people who crossed their paths at the wrong moment. Fear began spreading fast in packs. Farmers tried everything: noise cannons, electric fencing, night patrols. None of it worked. The boars learned patterns quickly, striking where the fences were weakest. They moved mostly at night, using forests as cover, fields as feeding grounds, and darkness as their shield. That's when one truth became clear. This was no longer just a farming problem. It was a full-scale invasion. Authorities had a choice: ignore it and watch rural economies collapse, or take action. That action came in the form of organized hunting operations. Experienced hunters were called in, not hobbyists, professionals who understood animal behavior, tracking patterns, wind, terrain, and timing. These hunts weren't about trophies. They were about survival, control, and restoring balance. The mission was simple on paper: locate the herds, track their movement, eliminate key adults, break breeding cycles. But in reality, hunting wild boars is one of the most dangerous tasks in wildlife control. A wounded boar doesn't run away. It charges. And as the first teams prepared to enter the fields, forests, and frozen landscapes, one question hung heavy in the air. Were humans still the hunters, or had they become the hunted? Because what awaited them in the darkness was not just an animal. It was a force of nature. First hunts didn't begin with gunfire. They began with silence. Long before dawn, hunters gathered at the edge of devastated farmland. Breath turned to mist in the cold air. Boots sank softly into wet soil torn apart by hooves heavier than most people realized. Every broken stalk, every deep run of ground told the same story. The herd had been here recently. Tracks overlapped each other in chaotic patterns. Some fresh, some hours old, a clear sign that the boars were not passing through. They were living here. Experienced hunters knew what that meant. Wild boars don't roam aimlessly. They plan routes. They use forests as escape corridors. They post sentinels. Younger boars positioned to warn the herd at the first sign of danger. And once alerted, the entire group can vanish in seconds, melting into terrain where visibility drops to nothing. The team split up, moving slowly, deliberately. Radios stayed silent. Hand signals replaced words. One wrong sound could send hundreds of animals crashing through the brush in every direction. Then it happened. A sudden rustle. A low grunt. Branches snapping under massive weight. Through the early fog, dark shapes began to form. At first, it was impossible to count them. 10, 20 more. The ground itself seemed to move as a giant herd emerged, bodies packed tightly together, steam rising from their backs as they fed without fear. These weren't nervous animals. These were confident destroyers. The lead hunters adjusted positions, carefully choosing angles. In wild boar control, precision matters more than numbers. Taking down the wrong animal can scatter the herd without stopping the damage. The goal is to remove dominant adults. The leaders, scopes settled. Fingers rested lightly on triggers. Then a single boar lifted its head. It stared directly toward the tree line. In that moment, everything froze. Hunters knew the look. It wasn't curiosity. It was recognition. The shot rang out. Chaos exploded instantly. The herd surged forward like a living wave. Some bolted into the forest. Others charged straight ahead, tusks flashing, eyes locked forward. Dirt flew. Trees shook. The ground trembled under pounding hooves. One boar, wounded but not down, broke away from the group and turned, not to flee, but to attack. A 200-kilogram animal moving at full speed leaves no room for hesitation. The hunter barely had seconds to react. A second shot cracked through the air, stopping the charge just meters away. Heartbeats thundered louder than the gunfire, but the hunt was far from over. As daylight crept in, teams followed escape routes into thicker terrain. This is where wild boars are most dangerous. Dense brush, uneven ground, limited visibility. A cornered boar will use every advantage nature gives it. More shots echoed. Some clean, some not. Hours passed. The cold deepened. Fatigue set in. And slowly, the truth became undeniable. Even with skill, planning, and firepower, the hunters were outnumbered. For every boar taken down, dozens slipped away. And as the teams regrouped, reviewing damage maps and movement patterns, a grim realization settled in. This wasn't a single hunt. This was a long war, because the surviving herds were already adapting. And the next encounter would be even deadlier. Changed everything. Daylight hunts had failed to slow the invasion, so farmers and hunters turned to the hours when wild boars truly ruled the land. Under moonless skies, fields that looked calm by day became hunting grounds filled with unseen movement and constant danger. Thermal scopes flickered on. Through glowing screens, the truth was horrifying. Entire hillsides were alive. White-hot shapes moved in waves. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of boars advancing together. Mothers shielded piglets. Massive males guarded the rear. The herd flowed like a trained army, spreading across crops with terrifying coordination. Farmers watched from vehicles parked far away, hands clenched. Every glowing shape represented destroyed livelihoods. Corn flattened overnight. Irrigation lines ripped apart. Fences crushed as if made of wire. Hunters moved slowly, knowing one mistake could be fatal. Night hunting wild boars is nothing like daytime control. Visibility is limited. Depth perception disappears. And a charging boar at night becomes almost invisible until it's too late. Then the radio crackled. A hunter was down, not wounded by gunfire, but injured during a sudden charge. A boar had burst from cover without warning, slashing with its tusks before vanishing again into darkness. Medics rushed in. Blood soaked the soil, already torn apart by hooves. That moment changed operation. This was no longer just about crops. This was about survival. Authorities escalated their response. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging began flying low over farmland. From above, pilots could finally see what ground teams couldn't: migration routes, nesting zones, and the true scale of the infestation. The numbers were staggering. In some regions, wild boar populations had tripled within a few years. Females bred twice annually. Piglets matured fast. Even aggressive hunting barely slowed their growth. Entire counties were declared high-risk zones. Coordinated hunts followed, air and ground teams working together. Flares forced herds into open areas. Spotters guided shooters. Every movement was planned with military precision. But even then, nature fought back. Boars learned quickly. They shifted routes. They moved earlier. They avoided open ground entirely. Some began attacking equipment. Others charged vehicles when cornered. One helicopter pilot later admitted, "It felt like they were thinking ahead of us." Weeks turned into months. Slowly, painfully, numbers began to fall. Damage reports dropped. Fields started recovering. But victory came at a cost. Exhausted teams, injured hunters, and millions spent on control efforts. And still, the threat remained. Experts warned that complete eradication was impossible. As long as forests exist, wild boars will return. Control, not elimination, is the only option for farmers. This became the new reality. Constant vigilance, reinforced defenses, and cooperation with hunters year-round. As dawn broke over battlefields, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a hunting story. It was a warning. When invasive species are ignored, nature doesn't negotiate. It overwhelms. And in the silent field of America, the echoes of hooves still remind everyone the fight is never truly over.